Alright, YouTube, we're back. So I wanted to talk about this. Me being the supervisor, me being the owner, me being the shop foreman, me being the mentor, me being the guy who wears multiple hats, right? So we had a exhaust manifold job that I had 2 technicians. I was trying to rev them up to get it done. And once I had the shop in position where I could put 2 mechanics on it, Chevy LS, I don't care how bad it is, they are the easiest engines to do exhaust manifolds on. I don't care if every stud was rusted out, broken off, flush, recessed in the cylinder head. A job like that for me would be about a 1-hour job start to finish. If even every bolt broke off and I had complications. That's how efficient I am with those jobs. So for the guys who don't do it every day, it was like oh my God. So I had 1 mechanic revved up to get on it, which was Caleb. And then once Caleb got revved up on it, Jude started to get revved up and excited. I'm like, listen, dude, just get it as far as you can. I know we're closing early, and no big deal, but there shouldn't be any reason why this job doesn't get finished in one day. And then it turned into, oh no, the dipstick tube is not coming out, and then that rust off and broke, and then we're not going to have an oil dipstick tube aftermarket till tomorrow. At 4 o'clock, I go to the dealership to get an OEM one. We meaning me and Jude, because Jude was outside his skill set, in my opinion, on the first round, is starting to extract it. I showed him what to do. We get it out, and then Monday or the next day we go back at it. So then we come in the morning, and I'm like, all right, get on that job, finish. And he's like, the driver's side's already done. I take a quick look at it, and I'm like, boom, looks good. Wires, plugs, everything's in. Passenger side needs to go back together. So then Jude puts it back together, and then he's pulling the lift out, and he's closing the hood. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm done. I say, you're not done. I said, I didn't even hear this truck run yet. He's like, dude, I've done so many of these, I'm confident in my work. I just knew, and this is what when you're trying to break the young bucks, right? This is me. I'm gonna stick my spurs in your ass every chance I get. That's how it is. And I tell them all the time, I don't care what you're doing to someone's car, before you close the hood, I want to hear the car run. But they think that they're so great, right? Even though they're not the greatest technicians with the most experience, that they think that they're the God's gift of fixing cars. And it's good to have that mentality, right? You want to feel that way. That when you don't follow protocol from the master, like I'm Papa Smurf, right? That when you see them kicking the lift out and closing the hood and not firing up a job like that, you know there's going to be a fucking problem. So I said, well, before shit gets sideways in here, I said, start the truck. It's fucking leaking loud as fuck. I'm like, what's going on? I said, Mr. LS mechanic, done this a million times. This should never happen. I said, this has never happened for me ever, that I had an exhaust leak on an exhaust manifold job ever after I was done. Absolutely not. You know why? Because I make sure that it's done right the first time, because it's labor intensive. If it's a quick fix, like, all right, it's a 5-minute job in and out. If you make a mistake or something happens, it's really not that big a deal. You're talking an hour or 2 hours, yeah, that's a nightmare. So, like, what happened? He's like, I don't know. Everything's done right. I said, open the hood, start the car. I look at the driver's side. I'm like, all right, driver's side looks 100% perfect. I already glimpsed at it before, but when I look at other people's work, I'm not dissecting every step and every move they made. And so I said, no, when I'm looking over their work, I'm not dissecting every move that they made. I'm looking over and say, whoa, all right, it looks like it's complete, but my focus isn't on their job. Their job is to focus on their job. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, the gasket looks like it's good on the driver's side. All the hardware is in, everything looks right. It's not the driver's side. Move to the passenger side. I'm like, what the fuck is this? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, why is the gasket below the manifold? He's like, well, that's the way it comes. I'm like, no, that's not the way it comes. He's like, well, that's the gasket it came with. I don't care. Your job is to make sure you're installing the right parts on the car, regardless of what comes in the box. It's part of being a professional. Like, this is what it is nowadays. You have to check everything. So I go, I have extra gaskets. I'm like, pull the manifold back off. Let me see what's going on. Pull the gasket out. I see debris still on the cylinder head. I'm like, what is this? He goes, oh, I don't do that. I'm like, what do you mean you don't do that? I showed you the way that I want the job done. This isn't Jude's show. This is my show. He's like, yeah, but it wasn't leaking from there. I said, I look back at the back corner of the gasket. I'm like, well, it's leaking from here. He's like, well, that's the gasket. I said, I don't care what gasket they send you in the job. Your job is to make sure that the gasket fits the product.
Right.
Is it a product problem? Is it an installer problem? Is it both problems? I don't know. So I said, you will absolutely never do an exhaust manifold job again without polishing the mating surfaces. And that's the way it is. So then takes it apart, scrapes it all down, gets it prepped. I get him a gasket, make sure it's sized to the ports, because the LS gaskets actually come in different port size for exhaust. I don't know why that is aftermarket. Some have a smaller port design, some have a larger port design. So I said, match up a gasket, slap it back together, gets it all in there, and while he's working on it, I seen the manifold was laying to the side. I'm like, did you loosen the bottom flange gasket to do that? And he said, no. I said, it shouldn't just move out of parallel that easily. I said, something's still not right, but I didn't put it together. Like, in my head, I know I could probably twist it out of kilter on that gasket, but I know if it was right, it would be very difficult to do that. So meaning when you unbolt the exhaust manifold and you leave it connected to the exhaust pipe, it's only going to move a hair away from the exhaust manifold, the cylinder head, for you to slip and slide a gasket. But this was laying on the fender skirt, basically, and I was like, all right, I see the problem, but I'm not really engaged. Everything's prepped, put it back together, fires it up, it's still loud. I'm like, all right, genius, what now? I said, are you sure that the gasket on the bottom side is the gasket? He goes, well, I showed you the gasket. That doesn't mean I'm paying attention, Jude. I told you before that the manifolds, for some reason or another, aftermarket, don't always come with the right gasket. The bottom one specifically.
Right.
He's like, well, it fit the manifold. I said, just because it fit the manifold doesn't mean it's fitting the Y pipe. He's like, well, it tightened up. And I was like, no, it didn't tighten up because it's leaking from there. So now put the truck back up in the air, and he's farting around. He's pulling the bolts down. He's having a little bit of an issue. And I was like, so what's the problem, Mr. LS Mechanic? Don't get anything wrong the first time. And now he's boiling, right? Because I'm trying to teach him to learn from his mistakes. And I said, and he's like, you need to stop riding me or I'm going to go home. I said, well, you can go to fuck home then.
Yeah.
I said, but it's not your money you're wasting. You're wasting my fucking money. That's what I said to him.
Good.
And I wouldn't be wise for you to leave. Because you won't come the fuck back. Good luck with that. So he got a little pissy, but I'm getting pissy because you said you're the man, and then you fucked the whole entire job up the whole entire way. On one side. Like, how can you get one side perfect, and you fuck up the whole entire job on the other side? Well, I don't know if he was trying to impress himself or trying to impress me or see how fast he can do a job, but he saw how fast he can do a job and then have to redo the job because I made him do it. I'm going to make you learn from your mistakes. Right? Mistake 1, closing the hood. Mistake 2, kicking the lift out. Mistake 3, not firing the car up without the hood being open, right, and sticking your face in your work. So multiple mistakes before he even got to where he made his mistakes. But the driver's side went flawlessly. So there was a huge disconnect there, and nobody was pressuring him for time. It was like, hey, this is a no problem job, and they were doing good at first, and then it went sideways quick. But for me, pushing him like, hey, you're going to figure out your mistakes and you're going to figure it out the hard way, especially when I give you the opportunity to take it all apart the second time and put it back together. The third time, I'm going to lose my mind. And I'm going to punish you for it.
Yeah.
So by him starting the car for a third time and still leaked on the same side, yeah, you were going to get it.
Yeah.
And then it turned out not only was the upper gasket to the cylinder head not the correct size, although it would have worked if he would have prepped the cylinder head surface better, it would have worked.
Yeah.
If he would have spent 5 minutes prepping the cylinder head better than not prepping it, which I don't encourage at all. When I do it, they're almost as new, less the pitting and decay that's on the cylinder head. The bottom gasket fit the manifold side. Bottom gasket didn't fit the contour on the downside. And I said they come with different gaskets save this gasket, hand it to me. I'm going to put it on the gasket board just in case there's a problem. So he had to pull it back apart again. I said, oh, let's. He goes, it's the same gasket. It's the same gasket. Well, it looks like the same gasket, but it sure as fuck don't feel like the same gasket. So I stand them up next to each other, and it's a 1/2 inch difference in the gasket size. So the one he put in was a 1/2 inch smaller, but that's what came in the box. Just because it's in the box doesn't mean it's right for the car. And then that flange actually has 3 standoffs. So when you tighten it up, if you don't really know the product line, meaning the Chevy manifold and all that, the bolts will tighten right up tight because there's 3 standoffs that get it to go tight. It's not like you're pushing on the gasket. You're actually pushing on the flange that has standoffs on the right side manifold. He's like, "So it tightened up." Yeah, no, dum-dum. You just tightened up the flange. You didn't really tighten the gasket because the gasket didn't even fit. Then put the original gasket back in. Started the car up, and it was coarse. But yeah, so sure, I'll get under your skin like a flea. That's for sure, and I won't stop. But you're gonna learn. That's for sure. It's starting to be a beautiful day. It's beautiful out here, and beautiful now.
It was especially.
All right, so that was me being mean. And I mean, I could have been a lot worse. I could have said, well, now you're not getting paid for the 2 hours longer that it took because you didn't do your job right.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's gold time. Thanks for watching.